Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
Allow me to reintroduce myself
with Mike McGuire.
Stand up, son. Let me take a good look at you.
This guy's a serious professional.
You know what I want to talk about?
Yeah.
Well, the professional wrestling.
Do I have your attention now?
Done shilling. I'm done shilling, okay?
Let's get this show on the road.
I love professional wrestling.
Hello, friends. Happy holidays. Welcome to a special countdown to the holidays edition of McGuire on Wrestling. Yeah, it's our last regular show of the year. But don't worry, new content coming your way all through the holidays, including the Holiday Hullabaloo Part Trace, the Triple Threat. In fact, it's more than a triple threat. We've got some returning guests coming back. We've got some old friends. And we have our Celebrate Wrestling Roundtable going to be a part of the show as well, where myself, Stephen Bennett, Joe Aguinaldo, Dimitri Karolis, and Mitch Honzius share the air together as only we can. And we talk about wrestling, we talk about life, we talk about fun, and we give you something to listen to over the holidays, whether you have some long drives ahead, whether you have maybe some time at work to kill, where, let's face it, nobody wants to work that hard. And if you are working over the holidays, thank you for doing what you do. Know there are people that appreciate you for what you do, and I'm probably one of them, because we're traveling this year. If you work in travel, if you work in like airports, airplanes, if you're a pilot, if you're a flight attendant, if you're flight crew, if you are a gas attendant, if you're working at the gas stations, right? Convenience stores, places like that. If you're working regular jobs that just need you to be there. Like, think of all the safety things out there that require people to work through the holidays. That's a real thing. And so I just want to, on behalf of everybody here at Celebrate Wrestling, convey our gratitude to you wherever you are. So hopefully you enjoy these shows and we get ready for a big new year. We've got a big new radio station signing on board. We've got more and more listeners coming in all the time. It's really appreciated. So thank you so much for finding the show and telling your friends about it too, because again, we're doing this for sport, we're doing this for fun. But coming up today, I will tell you some of the names that are going to be joining us for the Holiday Hullabaloo. I'm actually still waiting on a couple, but nevertheless, we're here and we've got some great guests lined up for you. One of them you already know about because we announced he's going to be a part of it again this year, but the annual tradition of the Hitman, Bret Hart, going to be on the show. And I like to call my conversations with Bret the real conversations with Bret, because when you see the stuff with fans and you see the stuff at conventions, I am of the mind, and I don't know if this is true, because Bret's always honest. That's the thing. It's to a fault. Bret's always honest. But I like to think you get a really great conversation between Bret and I every time, because we keep it light. We keep it positive. We tell good stories, and he's got some great stories for us this year for the Holiday Hullabaloo. So there you go. First guest announcement already. Probably no surprise to a lot of you. But yeah, Bret the Hitman Hart is going to be on the Holiday Hullabaloo, which is free for download, coming up this Christmas. Okay, we're going to leave it up there for a couple weeks, let you have time to download it, listen to it if you got to come back to it. Because right now the show is clocking at over 2 hours. And that's fine by me, because normally I like to keep it around an hour, but I want to give you guys as much content to enjoy over the holiday season, just as a way to say thank you. I will be announcing some more guests coming through in just a bit, but in the meantime, we do have a regular show to get to, so let's talk about some of the biggest stories of the week, including an upcoming year in review with Dave Meltzer, and Joe Aguinaldo going to join me to talk about the big fight that happened on Friday night. Normally we don't talk about boxing, but let's face it, these Jake Paul fights, they're pro wrestling. They're more pro wrestling than pro wrestling in some ways, but let's get down to it. Some of the biggest stories in the last week, we call it the 5 count.
You want to hear that breaking news?
Well, you know, I like to stray away from politics as much as I can because we're here to talk about pro wrestling, but this is a pretty interesting pro wrestling story, and it does have a political tie. Mick Foley, on a Facebook post from December 16th, said that he is going to be parting ways with WWE. In the post, Foley says, "While I've been concerned about WWE's close relationship with Donald Trump for several months, especially in light of his administration's ongoing cruel and inhumane treatment of immigrants," and then in parentheses, "and pretty much anyone who, quote, looks like an immigrant," end quote, reading the president's incredibly cruel comments in the wake of Rob Reiner's death, is the final straw for me. Foley goes on to say, I no longer wish to represent a company that coddles a man so seemingly void of compassion as he marches our country towards autocracy. Last night, I informed WWE Talent Relations that I would not be making any appearances for the company as long as this man remains in office. Additionally, I will not be signing a new Legends deal when my current one expires in June. Foley goes on to say, I love WWE, will always treasure my time with them, and I am deeply appreciative for all the opportunities they afforded me. But in the words of Popeye the Sailor, quote, I stands all I can stands, and I can't stands no more. WWE hasn't offered any comment or reply to this statement, but several non-WWE talents and fans have come out in support of Foley. Well, Canadian fans are excited, especially across Western Canada, as AEW has announced a string of shows returning to Western Canada, starting with Winnipeg and then going to Edmonton before wrapping things up in Vancouver for the return of AEW and their first time doing a pay-per-view out there with AEW's Dynasty on Sunday, April 12th. Now, tickets for all these events have gone on sale now. However, you can still get some for those shows, and we'll bring you more coverage as we get closer to that date. But yeah, April going to be a busy time for Canadian fans of AEW. As the dust continues to settle and the name drops still occur for John Cena following his retirement match against Gunther on Saturday night's main event, he did do his first interview since the retirement with Cody Rhodes on Cody's What Do You Want to Talk About podcast. Now, during this conversation that went almost 2 hours, they talked about a litany of things and also did what both guys are really good at in talking around a lot of things. But one thing that did come up, of course, was the story of Travis Scott and The Rock seemingly showing up one day, gone the next. Well, Cena confirmed in the interview that's pretty much exactly how it happened.
The day after we do the thing, everybody's like, hey, so all the stuff we talked about, that's out.
Right.
And thank goodness you're of the same mindset. We were like, okay, so what are we doing now?
Yeah.
What was also interesting about the conversation is there was seemingly a 3-month plan, though neither guy is willing to divulge what exactly those plans were going to be.
The whole world has had this conversation about like, well, what would it have been like if the two guys in it with their dick in the dirt not once had a conversation about, man, what would it have been like if we had those guys?
Yeah.
Well, spoiler alert, we have a new WWE United States champion. This took place on the Friday night SmackDown tapings, which took place this past Friday. However, for the upcoming taped episode, you will see Carmelo Hayes defeat Ilya Dragunov to become the new WWE United States champion. I will not give you any more spoilers, but I will say that there is some chicanery around it. So if you want to see exactly how this title change happened, be sure to check out SmackDown this Friday, Netflix in Canada and on USA in the United States. Well, the numbers are still rolling in from the Jake Paul-Anthony Joshua boxing match that took place on Friday night as well. Of course, that happened on Netflix and is now reported to have made over $250 million for the fighters, as well as the carriers here. Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua reportedly being paid out somewhere between $60 and $90 million each. Joshua did win the fight by knockout in the 6th round and has gone on to reportedly break Jake Paul's jaw in 2 places. Now, doctors are saying this could be the end of Jake Paul's boxing career. Our own Joe Aguinaldo is going to join me on the show in just a bit as we talk all about the latest Jake Paul fight spectacle and whether or not he's the problem or if it's something else. You're listening to McGuire on Wrestling, our last regular show of 2025. Of course, the Holiday Hullabaloo is going to be coming your way next week. But getting us there, we're going to take a look back at some of the year in review with a guy who's joined us many, many a time. The one and only Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer is next.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
The alternate commentary table, ACT, brought to you by the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Listen, it's Mitch, it's Dimitri. We got this little pod thing that we do every single week where we talk about the week in wrestling and the way in which we do it from the other side of the railing, right, Mitch?
I like that.
We're coming at it because we love it, we hate it. The alternate commentary table, ACT. Download it anywhere where you're getting your podcasts. Shasha!
It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
Dave, technically, we're not quite done with 2025, but I think it's pretty close. We can look back and, I've been asking a lot of the guys this question. I'm going to ask you as well. Your standout moments from 2025 for you. I mean, the passing of Hulk Hogan is a big one, obviously. Raw to Netflix is a big one. Mm-hmm. But there's been a dozen at least other big moments here, including John Cena's retirement, which we talked about last week, and more. But what for you were some of the most standout moments this past year?
Boy. I mean, the death of Hogan was the biggest news story of the year, without a doubt. Success of WWE, they set a lot of records this year still. I think and they really did. They set a lot of records. Though John Cena retirement tour was really big. CMLL drawing 1 million people to Arena Mexico, very underplayed. Just the whole success of CMLL, especially with tourists, is the most underplayed story. El Hijo del Santo retiring. I mean, it was a dud of a retirement tour, but he was a really major legend. The build to the Tanahashi retirement was really big. AEW doing a successful American Stadium show was pretty big. TNA having a comeback, doing a lot better business-wise and the relationship with TNA and NXT was big. I think I think those are like the big ones, maybe. For you doing your coverage and writing your stories and analysis and things, what was probably the most challenging story for you to get through and maybe not from a personal standpoint, but even from a professional standpoint, even trying to find out things? Like, do you remember anything really stonewalling you this year and trying to get the real answers to things? No, not this year. I mean, the biggest question, I was actually talking about this on my show Friday. The biggest question is actually still from a couple of years ago, which is like, who on the board of directors leaked the Vince McMahon story to the Wall Street Journal? That's the big one, especially with what's happened. Them getting into the boxing business was a big story as well. Getting, more into bed with Saudi Arabia, doing a Royal Rumble and a WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia, even though they haven't happened. One of them is about to happen. That's a pretty big. Yeah, switching WrestleMania out of New Orleans to go back to Vegas is pretty big, yeah.
How about The Rock? To me, that's been the biggest question mark on all of this.
Dwayne wasn't there last.
We didn't see
him
at John Cena's retirement last week. We didn't see him.
He was not at John Cena's retirement. We haven't seen him. Have we seen him since Toronto at all?
I don't think so.
No, that's
not even in like video highlight form. Like,
that's really interesting that we haven't seen him since Toronto, considering he is the highest paid guy of everyone, office, wrestler, whatever. I think that I've tabulated that he has made, $72 million that we know about in stock, but he also got paid as a performer and everything. So we're talking he's probably made close to $80 million in 2 years with this company. And he hasn't been around since Toronto, and he said he came to save the Toronto show because the advance was fine for Toronto. It wasn't good or great, but it was fine. But, he did lead to it selling a lot of tickets, and he shot the big angle, and then he disappeared.
He disappears, and then the only peep we really heard about him was when he got nominated for the Golden Globe.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting to see what 2026 is going to bring from that side of the table as far as WWE goes. And like you said, there's a lot of big business decisions that have happened. Like you said, the Saudi connection, money still just seems to be rolling in no matter what. These guys can't not make money, it seems.
It's impossible. It's impossible. There is not a way that they cannot make giant profits, both on the UFC side and on the WWE side. It's just impossible. Their TV deals or media rights deals are so incredible, and they can't. They could certainly double the talent salaries, and they'd still be making tons of money. But that's the point. It's like they could double everyone's salary, and they could cut out all house shows, which they've pretty much done, and they're still fine. And not just fine. The most profitable that they've ever been, and they got the new deal with ESPN, which is also a big story. The ESPN deal.
Did AEW manage to rebound successfully enough going into the new year, and how do you feel their momentum is going into 2026?
It's a hard one. I used to be able to tell from TV ratings, but for WWE, yes and no, because the way that the ratings have changed, makes it harder. With AEW, they're you're leaving out, a large percentage of the audience, and we don't know how large it is exactly. I only know like from the UK. Yeah, UK numbers are great. They're huge change. I usually go by pay-per-views and ticket sales. And, AEW was low, but they were running a lot of small buildings that they were selling out, but they're 1,500 seats, so you don't really know. I felt a little bit of an uptick the last couple of weeks, months, but not so much that it's gigantic. So, I mean, it's still there. At the end of the day, you look at those ticket numbers, it's still not where, I'd like a 4,000 average. They're at a 3,000 average. Pay-per-views, I think overall, good. The increases, some of that is probably due to the HBO Max thing. So, and their big stories is like what happens to WBD. That's bigger than anything else. Is what happens to WBD and how does that affect them? But long term, that's the number one thing when it comes to AEW right now. Not who Tony books in the main event next pay-per-view.
Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com is joining us right now. And Dave, when it comes to the new year here, I want you to put on your holiday wish hat here. And what is the thing you would love most forward to see coming up in the new year here for pro wrestling and pro wrestling fans?
Everyone to get smarter.
Explain.
not having to deal with so much absolute total stupidity on a daily basis. And that's probably for the people who are running wrestling companies who there's deserved flack, and then there's undeserved flack. And, and people get both.
Right.
But I would like the undeserved flack to go away. I'd like the tribalism to go away. I mean, that anti-AEW tribalism is really bad. The anti-WWE tribalism exists. Kind of bad. I mean, it's bad too, but not as ugly. I mean, I think I would like people to, it's bad when you're villainizing a match like Kyle Fletcher and Mike Bailey because the tribalism is so big. That's really, when guys work so hard and that's the one thing I know from a talent standpoint, less risks. I know that's like the big thing is to do the risks and everything, but it's like, I would like a lower injury rate in this business, less risks, especially because the guys taking the biggest risks almost inherently are the guys who are the most talented because to them the match means more than anyone ever, right? But right. I don't want to see Kyle Fletcher have neck surgery when he's 30. You know what I mean?
That's
I don't
fair.
want to, that's like the kind of thing that it's like you're already so talented. You know what I mean? You can have 15 more years in this business and great matches. You don't have to take pile drivers off the apron through tables or things like that to get a match over when the match is already fantastic. Spanish flies off the top of cages. I hope we never see one of those again. That type of stuff.
He is Dave Meltzer. This has been our year in review portion with Dave. Dave, you're back with us on January the 4th, and then we have the big debut on the new radio station in southern British Columbia, AM 1150, coming up on the 11th after that. So again, I want to thank you so much for sticking with me and sticking with us and all our listeners that appreciate your feedback. And I always say this, I always feel like I get a bit of a different Dave here because you and I, we talk a lot about the feeling and things. And I know there's a lot of people that like to come at you for a lot of reasons, but I truly appreciate your insight, your expertise, and honestly, just the time we get to spend talking about wrestling every week, man. This has been a true pleasure, and here's to bigger things next year.
Okay, thanks very much. I really appreciate that. It's been a pleasure for me too. I love talking wrestling with you.
Well, there you have it. I'm sure that makes me just as polarizing as Dave Meltzer, but thanks to him and thanks to you for being here. Coming up after a very quick break, Joe Aguinaldo is going to be here, and we're going to talk all about the Jake Paul fight that took place this past Friday night. I use the term fight in quotation marks, though, and if you watched it, you know why. If not, we're going to talk all about it. That is next. Thanks for being here.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
CKXUFM 88.3 in Lethbridge is Southern Alberta's true alternative radio station.
The cream of the crop. Nobody does it better.
Proudly carrying McGuire on Wrestling every week.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something different to listen to,
This is going to be a slobber knocker.
Check out our NCRA award-winning lineup of programs or stream us anytime at ckxu.com.
It almost, oh, there's a left hook. And down goes Paul.
6, 7, 8, 9.
Mamma mia! It may have taken a little bit longer than everyone expected, but AJ gets the KO in round 6.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Welcome back to the show. Joining me, as he has done many times throughout the years, Joe Aguinaldo is here. Hello, friend.
Hey.
Hey. We're not yaying, we're not booing, we're haying.
Well, yeah, okay. That works.
Well, coming up, of course, it's the holidays, so we're going to have on the McGuire on Wrestling podcast feed and on the radio as well, the Holiday Hullabaloo, which is going to be a culmination of our Celebrate Wrestling personalities, as well as some special pro wrestling guests, one of which we know already, and Bret the Hitman Hart, because we announced that back in October.
Nice.
However, there are more. In fact, there are several repeat guests, but we're going to get to that as well. Before we do any of that, we do have to talk, though, about something not quite so much pro wrestling, although I say it's more pro wrestling than pro wrestling, and definitely more pro wrestling than actual boxing. Okay? So let's go back to Friday night. I'll let you set us up here. So talk about these two fighters here and what we have. We know one of them is Jake Paul. Okay, the other, Anthony Joshua.
Right? Yeah, and Anthony Joshua, just for those of you who don't know, he's at one point, he was like the man in boxing. Like, at one point they wanted him and Deontay Wilder to fight for the Undisputed Championship. And I think this is like maybe, 4 or 5 years ago. So we're not talking a long time ago.
No, this is especially compared to Jake Paul's opponents. This is a relatively recent boxer.
Actually, I think he's ranked like, I want to say he's ranked like number 6 in the world.
Still.
Like he's a top 10.
Still
he's a ranked. Yes, okay. He's a ranked boxer. So I'll admit, when they announced this fight, I was shocked because, like, Jake Paul, would be fighting guys like Roy Jones, who's like, as good as that guy was, way past his, he's way past his prime. Tyson, again, as good as that guy was, way past his prime. So when they announced Anthony Joshua, I was like, dang, like that's a dangerous fight for like anybody, let alone, a guy like Jake Paul, who really isn't he's been a pro for 2, 3, 4 years, but like, Anthony Joshua is like, I think he's an ex-Olympian. Like the dude is just really good.
Right. This guy's a monster. And at the same time, it's one of those guys that honestly, he had more to lose if he lost this fight.
Huge,
than
massive,
did, right? Like, I mean, you're talking your reputation, your credibility, your entire essence as a boxer. And I noticed as the fight would go on, we'll talk about the fight here, but as the fight would go on, Mauro Ranallo would keep bringing up the fact that people were so surprised that this thing wasn't a first round knockout.
See, and I get that, but I also, like, here's the other thing, though, about Anthony Joshua is that, like, he lost a few fights that you didn't think he was going to lose. So I remember his first loss was against, I think the guy's name was Ruiz, and that was, like, a massive upset. And, like, I think what you were seeing with Anthony Joshua is that, like, he didn't have, like, the chin, for lack of a better way to say it, because he's been knocked down a few times.
Okay.
So I wonder if this was also part of the reason why Jake Paul picked this guy, because, the guy had a suspect chin.
He thought if you hit him hard enough, that could be it.
Yep.
And that seemed to be the strategy. So if you want to go back to Netflix and watch the fight, you can. It's there waiting for you. I'll be honest, man. I'm, like I mentioned earlier, doing this week's show from Northern BC. So I was in the airport the next morning, because we can get to our hotel till late the night before, and I was like, I'll just watch it in the morning. That's fine. I don't care. Sure enough, headlines everywhere, right? Like, it's all everybody can talk about because it's the only thing that's happened of interest in sports in the last week, to be real. And sure it is, this spectacle, and everybody's talking about how, Johnson put him away. So I watched this thing, and I'm like, Okay, so this has got to be like, what, first, second round? No, it went longer than that. Okay, fine. So I'm watching this, and the amount of bull crap that went on in this fight, for lack of a better term, and that's even the term the referee used at one point, the referee saying the fans didn't pay for this crap. That's a direct quote.
Yep.
The fans didn't pay to see this crap. Jake is like taking knees, and they say he's going for takedowns.
Yeah, like he was doing double leg takedowns, and I was just like, oh, this is not good.
Like, okay, we get that you don't want to be taken seriously as a boxer. We get that. Your style is hit hard and be an idiot. No offense, it's true. Made millions of dollars doing it, so it's not like we can fault him, but at the same time, I mean, hey, we sit here and talk about pro wrestling and how if a predetermined pro wrestling match doesn't live up to expectations, how we feel ripped off as fans. How does Netflix not feel ripped off? How do the fans not feel ripped off? And why, most importantly, do we still care? Why are we talking about it on this show? Why do we still care about this?
Well, you have to give Jake Paul his due, right? I mean, I'm hearing a lot of people saying, oh, he's a phony, he's a fake. What was up with the takedowns and all that stuff? But man, people still watched, and I can't fault him for that. We're still talking about it, right?
And that's what I mean. Like I'm talking about it because it is a topic of discussion. It's. They didn't want to say that, well, sports entertainment was never pro wrestling. Well, sports entertainment still exists.
Yes, okay, guys? Yes, it does.
Sports entertainment exists, and now it's in influencer boxing. And that's where it lives and dies, is influencer boxing, I feel, until, I don't know. I mean, you can argue to a degree every sport and every competition can be rigged one way or another. But if I'm being told you're getting a great fight, you're getting two of the best, you're paying this money to see this, great. They never said that.
No, they did not.
They never said that. So going in, what you're getting is a farce. Okay? Mauro Ranallo did his absolute best. All the commentators, everybody, did their very best to maintain their credibility while still getting that paycheck.
Yeah.
Okay? I hate to say this, but sitting there calling it a turd is still you calling the turd. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, and trust me, I've been a part of some bad things too, where it's like you question, is this right? Is this supposed to be a thing? I mean, there was a thing that that I was a part of, that something terrible happened, and I couldn't further distance myself from that if I tried. And at the same time, I have to eat the fact that I still went there and I took the paycheck. But, I mean, it was just one of those things where it's like, I don't care, I'll never do it again. I'll never work for them again. But I'm also never going to say that I'm going into any event hyping it as the greatest of all time when I know it's not. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I get you. And I mean, I think, if we're going to talk about the announcers for a little bit, like, that's the rock and a hard place thing, because they have to promote this, right? You can't just go on air and especially on a Netflix to say, oh, this is crap, this is an embarrassment. You can't do that, right? Like, I mean, it would be the same with, like, let's take WWE or AEW, like, that you still got to hype your product to some degree, no matter how bad the match is in front of you, right?
Well, that's where the modified this call came in, right? Where,
yeah.
Like you go for a spine buster, but you throw the guy over your head. Well, modified spine buster there, failed on the attempt. I know that call all too well. Okay, but what I'm saying is that it becomes a point where you can easily take a look at what's going on in the wrestling ring and cover it because you're covering a predetermined event, sports entertainment, whatever. But when you're looking at a quote boxing match,
legit,
yes,
yeah,
where guys could legitimately wound each other, and now they're saying that Jake Paul has had his jaw broken in 2 places. Good, and I'm not wishing harm on anybody. But the response to that is they're saying that he may never box again. Good. For the sake of boxing, good, but for the sake of what he does, not so good. Because let's face it, he did make a ton of money. A bunch of other people made a ton of money off that happening. Like, I'm not faulting entertainment. What I'm faulting is entertainment that is a fraud. And again, as a guy who's in pro wrestling, okay, the cat's been out of the bag for a long time, where what we're watching is supposed to make it's like going to a movie. You're going to buy into the story. There was no story to buy into this. This is two guys legitimately trying to fight each other to a degree until Jake Paul turned it into a spectacle. And not a good spectacle.
And that's fair. But again, like, and you know, you and I have had this conversation in the past. It's like, okay, so, you know, Jake Paul made it a spectacle, but like, we're still watching it. Like,
I know.
You know, that's the piece I can't rectify. It's like, you can complain about the quote unquote legitimacy of this event, but at the end of the day, we watched it. Like,
so for those of you listening and you're asking yourself, what is the point of all this? I think the point, Joe, and we have to be able to accept the uncomfortable truth, we are the problem.
And
we are the problem.
To some degree, we are, right? Because at the end of the day, if people, like, I think the numbers were like Joshua, who's the winner, made 60 million, only 60 million, and Jake Paul made like 120 million. Okay, so like between the two of them, they earned 100. Let's call it 200 million, give or take, right?
What kind of money is that even? Like, I can't wrap my head around that.
But the thing is, they're not making that if we're not watching it. So like that's the problem.
And that's companies like KFC and Capital One and all these ones putting their names on the ring for sponsorships, knowing their logo is going to be seen. That's same as we see in wrestling, right?
Yep.
I mean, let's go all the way back to was it the first All In? Was that where we saw the Cracker Barrel being used?
Yes, it was like, it was like not even when they were AEW. It was when they were.
It was when it was still All In. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a Cracker Barrel sponsorship.
So we're using the Cracker Barrel. Okay, why not? Right? Like, I'm not going to fault people for making money off of selling. Dude, we're in media, okay? Like, we sell our content because that's how we make money off this thing, right?
Right.
And again, you and I both swimming in it, obviously. But back to the point of it all is that, okay, we need to draw a line between what we call legitimate and what we call entertainment. And that's I think the thing that bothers me is that we're still hopeful to some degree that one of these Jake Paul fights is going to be, quote, legit. We know it's not, but it gives us something to complain about. So I guess that's worth $200 million.
I guess, but I mean, like, look, let's forget Jake Paul and Joshua for a sec. Like,
okay,
no offense, because I'm a fan of both guys, but like Anderson Silva and Tyron Woodley, really? Like, you know what I mean? To me, that was more of a, like, it was a spectacle of two names, but it was like neither. Like, okay, you might make the argument that Anderson Silva is a good Muay Thai fighter. But Tyron Woodley is not a boxer. He's got a good right hand. And the fact that was a match on this card, to me, was like again, to me, that was more sports entertainment than Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. Because at least Jake Paul has a little bit of a boxing background. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't get that fight at all. Other than the name value.
You're old enough to remember this. And shout out to anybody else that is too. But do you remember when, was it Fox? Fox or MTV, one of the two. No, MTV did the death matches where they did the claymation matches.
Oh, God.
Fox did, remember this, celebrity boxing.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
was it like Danny Bonaducci?
Danny Bonaducci was like one of the top guys in this thing, which already tells you where this is going. Okay, but then on the women's side, they had Paula Jones, who was one of the women that allegedly had an affair with Bill Clinton, and she was boxing Tonya Harding.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Who ends up becoming the other, quote, legit boxer in this whole thing. And And people watched it, and people talked about it. So it's not like we can't even blame this on the influencer generation.
No, you can't.
This goes back to we are the problem. We are the problem.
Well, and again, it's a spectacle. And like at the end of the day, good or bad, people are willing to pay for the spectacle. I'm not the biggest Jake Paul fan, but I can't blame him, because if someone's giving me $200 million to fight Anthony Joshua, I'm in. And you know what? I know I'm going to get my ass kicked. I'm going for his legs. What I mean?
By the way, folks, Royal Rumble and WrestleMania tickets on sale now. Oh, man. Well, there you have it. All right. You're listening to McGuire on Wrestling. Mike McGuire here with Joe Aguinaldo, and we just dipped a bit into the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua foray, which again is the fight people are going to talk about for 2 more days and then pretend like it never happened again. And a couple guys walked away with 200 mil. Good for them. Holy gosh. Right? Okay, let's get down to what we do here, Joe.
All right.
It is produced, it is in the can, and it is just about ready for release. That is the 2025 edition of the Celebrate Wrestling Holiday Hullabaloo. This started as our Christmas show 2 years ago, and it kind of started off as a way to take a little bit of a break over the holidays. Now it's turned into a really great reason to take a break over the holidays. But we've got some guests lined up. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge our round table, which is a part of this thing. Joe, you are a part of that. Also, Mitch Honsius is able to join us. Dimitri Karolis and Stefan Bennett is able to join us this year from Legends and Champions. Andy, unfortunately, dealing with some other stuff, so he'll be back. But in the meantime, we got the whole panel together, and we talk about a lot of things.
Yes, we do.
I don't even remember half of them anymore because we talked about so many. But it was a ton of fun just getting to kind of sit there and chew the fat and shoot the poop and have some fun there. Now, I want to get down to some of the celebrity guests, one of which we knew already, in Bret the Hitman Hart. Becoming an annual tradition, having Christmas with the Hitman. And as I said earlier in the show, it's probably the rarity because I'm the guy that does the interviews where Bret actually says nice things.
Nice.
And I'm not saying that he doesn't say nice things in other interviews, but people always use the bad things, or not even bad things, but controversial things he will say to get the headlines, to get the clicks. Go ahead, have at her. That's not what we do here.
Dude, I got to talk to him, so I got nothing but good things to say about the dude. So
the Hitman's got great stories too this time around as well. One of them you heard earlier this year a bit when we talked about his dad getting the bridge named after him in the Stu Hart Bridge in Calgary. So that story's there, but we also talk about some other things, and you get to hear from the Hitman himself. Secondly, also making his return, and I like to say he's the other Canadian legend that's become a part of the Holiday Hullabaloo in pro wrestling, so, which he grudgingly accepts. In AEW's RJ City will be back on the show.
Nice.
And RJ and I have some laughs. Of course, that's what RJ does. He just pulls the most random references out of nowhere. We also talk about the last edition of HeyEW, and we might do a return to the Hey RJ interview, which was
nice.
A bit of a classic bit. It's not, I'm going to go ahead and say, and this is why I don't like doing the same bit twice. It's not always as good as the second time around, but it's not bad. We still have a ton of fun talking about other stuff with RJ, and then the RJ interview comes in. Also, and this is a big one, I've been debating whether or not I was going to save it as a surprise. We got to pre-promote things these days, so why wouldn't you? For the first time ever on Celebrate Wrestling, McGuire on Wrestling, or anything like that, someone who's been asked for a lot on my shows since I started doing them, and even on the show before that, one of the founding members of Post Wrestling, John Pollock, is going to be
nice.
And John and I have an intertwined history to a bit, but not really. Like, John's done a lot more than I ever have, but it was nice to actually just have like a normal conversation with the guy, and we talk about everything from even him being a young wrestling fan before he was John Pollock, which I don't think a lot of people have ever talked to him about before, because he seemed to really enjoy just reminiscing the days of just being a fan.
Yeah, like I was fortunate enough to meet John like in the early 2000s. Excuse me, back when live audio wrestling was being recorded at a radio station that I used to work at.
Yeah.
And so I got to meet a young John Pollock and a young Wei Ting when Wei was driving Dan around, to and from the shows, right? It's really been.
Was that when Wei was John's camera guy?
Pretty much, yeah. This is like I don't know about his camera guy, but let's call him. He was the intern for Dan Lavransky, so he would be driving Dan around and stuff.
Oh my gosh!
So and again, I'm not saying I know these guys uber well or anything like that, but I did get a chance to get to know them, and it's just been really cool to see both guys grow in their success and on this whole post wrestling thing. So yeah, I'm excited to hear that one. John Pollock is one of my favorite, sort of pro wrestling, let's say journalists, whatever, aside from you. No.
John is, and I'll go ahead and say this. John, a journalist. Me, guy that likes talking about wrestling in a media forum. Okay.
Fair enough.
And that's the way I kind of want to keep it too. If I have to switch into journalism mode once in a while, fine. But for the most part, I don't consider myself a journalist. I consider myself, and I said this with John. I said, you're the CNN. I'm like the David Letterman, over here making jokes about stuff and having fun conversations with people. So.
Yeah, no, John is John and Wei, but John especially is they're just awesome dudes, and I'm glad you got them on the show, and hopefully you'll get them on the show more often.
Well, I got John. I don't have Wei yet. See, I got to save surprises for the Holiday Hullabaloo 4 here, but
right.
But speaking of bringing the band back together, though, it's funny. It's almost like a live audio wrestling hybrid again, and also an old show hybrid here because reuniting. For one time only, ladies and gentlemen, and probably not one time only. It's just we haven't done anything because, it's just the way it is. But ladies and gentlemen, once known as the Old Bleeps, covering All Elite Weekly, now reunited, Joe Aguinaldo pulling double duty with Dan the Mouth Lavransky. How was it to do a segment with Dan all over again?
It's like riding a bike, man. We hadn't talked. Again, I mentioned this in when we were talking, but Dan and I have never really talked outside of work. So whenever we talked wrestling, was always at the office or whatever. But it's so weird because we'll go years without talking, and then all of a sudden we see each other, and it's like, hey, how's it going? And then we're just right back at it.
Yeah.
Just Dan's going to be one of those guys that, whether he likes it or not, he's going to be a friend for life, and so it was really cool to talk to him. And, I would love to, if you ever decide to do that again, I'm up for another reunion whenever you want to do it.
Well, I still think the Joe Aguinaldo show needs to be a thing. And I don't know.
No,
well,
let's not
remember,
do that.
Remember, we were going to do Mike and Joe, right? And that's what started the whole kerfuffle of the old one because I put out an email address. How dare I?
Yeah.
But then I was like, you and I should just do a show. We'll have some fun. And we haven't done that yet. But, geez, when you and Dan get together, and I will say this, there is a competition during the segment between Dan and Joe that you are going to have the benefit of hearing the highly edited version of. Because let's say it just went a little long. And we're not going to say why because we need to have you have a reason to tune in. But nevertheless, it was a ton of fun. And Joe Aguinaldo pulling out some fast moves. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. So there you have it. The Holiday Hullabaloo 3 going to be posting. I'm trying to decide if I want to do it on Christmas Day or if I want to post it on the Sunday. So either way, it's going to come sometime this week. Clocking in at about 2 hours. There's also 2 other guests that I don't have recorded yet. We're really trying to make it happen here. And so if it happens, great. And if not, I don't want to mislead and false advertise. But I am waiting on one more segment, which is part of the reason why I brought all the recording gear with me to northern BC here, because I will produce this thing down to the last day if I have to. Just because why actually have a holiday? Anyway, but that is coming up. And that puts a button on this week's edition of McGuire on Wrestling. So, Joe, we'll say it again when we get to the Holiday Hullabaloo coming up. So thank you for everything you do for these shows, even though you think you don't do anything, you do. Oh, and a special merchandise announcement coming up as well on the Holiday Hullabaloo. And if you can tell by that reaction what it might be, then you're probably right. Anyway. So, Joe, my man, Merry Christmas. I'll probably talk to you around AEW World's End. I don't know if we're going to do a recap show or not on that one, just because they chose the date. But yeah, we'll see. Either way, there will be a discussion thread on our Celebrate Wrestling social media. And if something major happens, we might do an emergency quick little wrap up on it. But to be honest, it's the holidays, man. Watch the show. Enjoy it. You can live off the internet for a little while, but don't you dare unsubscribe. That's the only thing we ask. Keep telling your friends about it. And again, McGuire on Wrestling, Celebrate Wrestling, back in full force and still putting out content over the holidays. Joe, thank you so much for being a part of everything, my man.
No, thank you, man.
And thank you out there for listening, as always, and letting me do what I do. Until we speak again with the Holiday Hullabaloo. Play safe, drive safe. I'll be seeing you. It's still Mike. It's not Santa. Bye.
McGuire on Wrestling. Online and on the radio. Listen to the show Mondays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at CKXU.com, wherever you get your podcasts, and at McGuireShow.com.